And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce the MC for the morning, Roger Reardon. Roger, the floor is yours.
Thank you and good morning. I appreciate everyone coming out, from the governor, our state senators, reps, our chiefs of police, Colonel Clements, especially from the Providence Police Department. He's been a great support with this whole event. This is hosted by the American Police K-9 Association. I'm the president of that organization. We have teams that were here all week training in various disciplines, people from out of state, New England, obviously Rhode Island. It's been a great week, but it's getting topped off with a real important bill that's everyone worked hard on to pass, which helps save the lives of our canine partners. There's no question about that. So I'll get right to it. With no further ado, I'd like to introduce to you the Honorable Governor Dan McKee.
Thank you. All right, that's like the best applause I've had in a long time. Thank you very much. So, on behalf of the entire state of Rhode Island, it's an honor to be here today with members of law enforcement. And I think that those who are serving in our public safety areas are so important to our state and every state that's represented here today. And you often hear me say this is the time to bring community and our policing together, and also bring our policing and our communities together, and make sure that we are doing the right thing every day, but let's make sure that we're honoring and respecting those who provide public safety here in the state of Rhode Island. So thank you so much for each and every one to be here today. I'm a hit. This is but anyways, what we're here today is to sign a piece of legislation that not only protects our police, our two-legged police officers, but also our four-legged police officers. Make sure that if there needs to be life-saving first aid, that we're treating our canines as they should be, to make sure that they're receiving the aid that they need at that point in time when they need it. So I do want to acknowledge our reps, our senators that have really championed this. So Rep Bennett, thank you, and Senator Ashenball, thank you. Senator Raptakis, thank you as well. And Rep Stephen Shakaros, right? Is it Shakaros? A former deputy chief himself in Yarmouth, who has championed this legislation in the state of Massachusetts. So welcome, Rep, and we don't mind taking good ideas and adopt them here right in Rhode Island. So I think anybody that's from Rhode Island that saw the movie Ruby, know that how important dogs are to our law enforcement. So these bills ensure that these loyal public servants and members of our police departments across Rhode Island are provided with life-saving first aid in the event of some sort of an emergency or tragedy. We often say that dogs are man's best friend, and their police handlers, they are more than that. They are crucial, important partners who deserve the appropriate treatment if they suffer an injury in the line of duty. And I know I just said hello to each officer and their counterparts there with the K-9s. Thank them for that work. We know that it runs the gamut. It runs the gamut from issues that have to do with drug enforcement, whether it has to do with making sure that our schools are safe, making sure our communities are safe. So we thank each and every officer that's here today who represents a very important part of our public safety and our police. So when an officer puts on a uniform and goes to work, they should feel safe, knowing that they'll be coming home that night safe. The same goes for our police K-9. So I sincerely thank the bill sponsors and advocates who ensured that this critical legislation reached my desk. And it's going to be an honor to sign that into law today. So I'll hand this back to Roger, but thank you so much for having us here today, and thank you for all attending from Rhode Island, wonderful and tremendously important leadership in our police departments, to those who are from in-state and out of state. So thank you for having me here today. I'm looking forward to signing the bill.
Thank you, Governor McKee. At this time, I'd like to introduce Representative David Bennett.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I'm an animal lover, and I see all these beautiful animals, and it makes me smile. This bill came about with the author, Massachusetts Representative Steve Zaros. I read the article. Sergeant Gannon was killed and his dog was wounded, and they had no policy and procedure to help that animal. So we passed this bill. Rhode Island's number 2, Mass was number 1, and as the governor said, we don't mind borrowing good legislation from other states. I was lucky enough to be outside the State House, and there was a K-9 officer out there, and I told him about the bill. And he said, you know, Rep, a real serious look on his face, he goes, I'd rather them help my dog than me. And that hit home with me. You know, and so I got my good friend, Senator Archambault, Senator Raptakis on board, and we ran this bill and it passed. I'd like to say that the American Kennel Club has a program that they will go out and raise funds, and the National will give them match 3 to 1 for any community or police department that needs a dog. So this is a good thing for police departments, because these dogs are very expensive. And I can't say enough about the dogs, and I don't want to stand up here all day and take your time. But our K-9 dogs, they save lives. You know, they're not gonna back down from anyone when their handler gives them a command. And I think that's amazing, because it saves a lot of police officers' lives, and they're a great community resource. I think they're great to have dogs. And I'm going to end with that. I want to thank you very much for being so receptive to this legislation, and I'd like to say thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Representative David Bennett. At this time, I'd like to call up Senator Steve Archambault.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here today in a room filled with so many folks who love dogs and love law enforcement, and to celebrate this legislation. Just like the human counterparts, K-9 dogs are heroes, and I think all of you know that in your DNA. They serve the public faithfully, and they do it with great distinction and oftentimes without any acknowledgement or credit. They help keep our communities safe, and for that, they're owed our eternal gratitude and our care. Medical personnel at crisis scenes should never be forced to stand by and watch, unable to help, as K-9s suffer following a tragic injury. That should never happen. And that's exactly what happened in Barnstable, Massachusetts one day in 2018, when Yarmouth Police K-9 Nero, Sergeant Sean Gannon, were shot serving a warrant. Tragically, Sergeant Gannon was killed in that incident. K-9 Nero was also wounded by a bullet, but because of the regulations in place, personnel at the scene couldn't give him the immediate medical care he needed. Just imagine after trying to serve this warrant with Sergeant Gannon critically wounded and Nero sitting there, unable to be given care. None of you can probably wrap your heads around that, but that's literally what happened. Nero was ultimately taken to an animal hospital in the back of a police cruiser, and I'm happy to say he survived. And I don't know the details of how exactly that happened with respect to who put him in the cruiser, but that was a leap of courage. And that leap of courage led to Massachusetts State Rep Exaros, who's here with us today, who was a deputy police chief at the time when Sergeant Gannon and K-9 Nero was shot, being inspired to adopt Nero's law. Deputy Chief Exaros left the department a couple of years ago, and he's going to talk in a minute. He dedicates his life now. He's a Massachusetts State Rep, but he dedicates a major part of his life and his passion to seeing this law adopted across the country. So if any of you here are, and some of you are, from out of state, Rep Exaros would like to talk to you because he'd like to make a contact and see if he can pass the law in your particular jurisdiction. Nero's law is a common sense approach to a tragic situation, and it's a fulfillment of a moral responsibility we owe to those who keep us safe, people and canines alike. Here in Rhode Island, we hope this type of tragedy and scenario never plays out. And as I said, I'm proud to have worked on this legislation. This makes you feel good in your soul. And I'm proud of everyone who's made this work successful and possible today. First and foremost, I do want to thank Rep Exaros for his inspiration and support. Secondly, I want to give special thanks to my friend Representative Bennett, because he's the real champion in the General Assembly who took the bill from Rep Exaros, and without his inspiration and support and leadership in the House, it wouldn't have been possible. Next, I want to thank Senator Raptakis. His zealous advocacy and his enthusiasm is infectious on our side. Once he gets on something, he's kind of like a hound dog on a scent. He won't let go. And thanks to my Senate colleagues, friends in the House, but particularly to Governor McKee for supporting the bill and seeing its value in providing added support to our canine dogs. And last, but certainly not least, all of you in this room, special thanks to our law enforcement community. You're the ones that put your lives on the line every day. You're the ones out there in the front line, making sure all of us are able to live safe and free. So thank you to all of you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Senator Rochambeau. At this time, I'd like to introduce Senator Leonidas Raptakis.
Thank you, President Reardon, and a former Rhode Island State Police Sergeant and K-9 officer. Governor McKee, my colleagues in government, Representative Bennett, Representative Rochambeau, and my close friend, Representative Xarcos, who came to testify in the Rhode Island Senate and House on this very important bill. To all the men and women from all the police departments here, from Rhode Island, from New Hampshire, North Carolina, South Carolina, Indiana, thank you very much for your service to our constituents. I think canines are part of our public safety and for all Rhode Islanders' safety, especially the stories that you also heard about Nero. And there was other stories also, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not forget that these canines are a part of our public safety, especially what happened back in June 5th, 2021. In Barnstable, Massachusetts, a police canine kit was killed and 2 officers were injured during a firefight with a suspect after a 911 call was made about a domestic dispute that Friday afternoon in Barnstable, Massachusetts. And also, again, another dog in Fitchburg on this past July 22. A state police canine named Frankie was shot and killed during a standoff in Fitchburg that Tuesday afternoon. It happened at a multi-family house on Oliver Street. The suspect apparently shot and killed himself. This is, ladies and gentlemen, knowing what is happening today while these canines do sacrifice their lives, but at the same time, we should also be making sure that they are protected while they're being served. The legislation that we are about to sign, and Governor, again, coming out and supporting this bill, which shows tremendous support for the people of Rhode Island and for all law enforcement, allows emergency personnel to treat injured police dogs, allows emergency personnel to transport injured police dogs, and requires any emergency personnel that would render to care to a police dog to have the complete training consistent with standards approved by the Office of Emergency Medical Services. And I think this is a very important day. And just a quick story, myself as a small business owner, when I was raising 2 young kids, we had a restaurant called Venus Pizza, and I asked Roger, can you get me a K-9, a German Shepherd? And Roger did, and guess what the name of the dog was? Domino. So I said, is that okay? He said, absolutely, but let me tell you something. The training that a lot of these officers go through these programs, especially this past week, is very, very important for the police departments, training these important dogs that do go out and protect all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Raptakis. At this time, I'd like to bring up Representative Charos. Give a couple of words, please.
Everybody, this is very emotional for me, personal. Thank you, gentlemen. So, a few years ago, I was one of you. I was a cop. So I get it. And to be here today is very bittersweet because I spent 40 years, like you, wearing body armor and a gun, went to work. And on April 12, 2018, I sent 7 officers and K-9 Nero to go get a very violent criminal that should have been in prison. He had 125 prior charges, selling fentanyl, armed with illegal guns. And it was 7 of our officers that had the job to go get him. They left my office at around noon, and then around 3 o'clock on that day, I heard the horrible screams on the radio. And when I arrived at the home, my officer, Sean Gannon, had been shot in the head, and our dog, Nero, was somewhere in that house with the murderer. And it was extra hard for me because I've already lost my own son in war. My son Nick, I sent off to Afghanistan as a Marine, and he came home to me in a flag-draped coffin. And all I could think was, this is happening again. Sean Gannon was my brother in blue. These are my brothers now in legislature. But I want to tell you a little bit more about Nero and what happened so you can understand it, especially for the police officers and your dogs, because it'll probably happen again. But I will never forget the sight of Nero being rescued from that house. It took us 3 hours to get the suspect to give up and to clear the home. And when they brought Nero out, bleeding to death, swallowing his own blood to try to live, and nobody could help him because in Massachusetts it was illegal to help an animal. So that moment changed my life. I decided to retire and make a difference, and ran for office, and so proud that we were able to win and file this law. But it was based on that day. And then, as the senator has said, since that day, right, K-9 Kit in Braintree tries to rescue his officers, and a criminal shot K-9 Kit to death. But he saved the officers. And I went to that funeral to see a police dog in a casket on the 50-yard line at Gillette Stadium is something I hope to never see again. And I'm honored to say that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts took an idea from a rookie representative and made it a law. And on April 12th, 2022, 4 years to the day, we signed the Nero law in the $1 million building that we built in Sean's memory at Yarmouth Police Headquarters, so we can train police dogs and police officers forever in Sean's house. And then, as the senator also mentioned, Just a few months ago, in Fitchburg, Massachusetts State Police were trying to arrest a violent criminal who was armed, and that criminal attacked them, and he shot at them numerous times. And K-9 Frankie jumped to their protection. And in doing that, he saved their lives, but he was shot multiple times, just a few months ago, in broad daylight. The difference was they came to his rescue. They gave him first aid. They put him in an ambulance, and they transported him to the local veterinary hospital. So that's a real story of how this law works. Unfortunately, K-9 Frankie's wounds were too massive. But I want to read you the text that I got that night, that I'll always have. So at the end of that horrible night, just two months ago, I got this text. It said, "Sir, I'm sorry for the late text, but I'm just getting back from dropping off the body of K-9 Frankie at the crematorium in Rhode Island. Unfortunately, we were not able to save him, but he was able to be treated and transported due to your bill. That bill gave him a shot. On behalf of the Massachusetts State Police, thank you, sir." So I am forever proud that the great state of Rhode Island has helped turn our tragedy into triumph because of you, all of you. Every police dog in this state will be given that same chance to live. I thank my new brothers, Representative Bennett, Senator Archambault, Senator Rapatakis, Governor McKee, for carrying the story in your heart. You never gave up, and you made Rhode Island history, and now together, we're gonna make this the law all over our great nation. These dogs are not just animals, they are every bit the heroes that we recognize their human counterparts to be. I got to work with heroes every day for 40 years. You deserve to be protected in your time of need. God bless and protect the men, women, and K-9s of American law enforcement. Rest in peace, K-9 Sergeant Sean Gannon. We did it. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Chavez. At this time, it's an honor and a privilege that we sign this bill. And with that being said, I would like to introduce the Honorable Governor Dan McKee.
Come on over, everybody, come on over.
Can we get some of the officers with some of the dogs back there, please? Can we get some of the officers standing behind us, please? Chief, some of the officers, please. Yeah, some of them. Go on right here. Right here. Chief. Chief, come right here.
You actually do some other stuff, right? That's good. Okay. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you all for your meaningful.
This is K-9 Hero. That's Sean. This is yours.
Yeah.